This is Julia James Davis, and welcome to The War on Beauty. Jesus warns us in the Gospel of Matthew, live by the sword, die by the sword. Yet today, we bear witness to a very disturbing phenomenon, the celebration of violence as entertainment, heroism, and even justice. When Luigi Mangione executed Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, in cold blood, social media erupted not with horror or condemnation, but glorifying the killer as a hero and a heartthrob. This is not normal. This represents the culmination of what I call the war on beauty, what this whole channel is about. A war on all things good, true, and beautiful. And the fundamental truth that humanity is the crown of God's creation. We are all made in His likeness and image. And the recent and increased hatred of man by other men has become, by extension, a hatred of God in the most intimate way. So how did we arrive at this very dark moment where murder evokes cheers rather than revulsion? This transformation didn't occur overnight. Rather, it represents the fruition of decades and perhaps centuries of subtle and not so subtle programming at every level of our society. A comprehensive assault on human dignity. The foundation was primarily laid with the systematic erasure of God from our cultural consciousness. Traditional faith was gradually inverted into a new ideology of atheism that cunningly rebranded all things destructive and anti-human as moral and liberated. Modern doctrine insists that man can only achieve his highest potential by replacing God and mystery with science, reason, and rationality. Henri de Lubac, who was a Catholic priest, wrote in his profound work, The Drama of Atheist Humanism, a quote that I think captures our present condition in society so perfectly. What has become of man as conceived by this atheist humanism? A being that can still hardly be called a being. A thing that has no content. A cell completely merged in a mass that is in process of becoming social and historical man, of whom all that remains is pure abstraction, apart from the social relations and the position in time by which he is defined. When we strip away the sacred truth that man is made in God's image and that all of humanity is, man ceases to be man. We no longer perceive each other anymore as souls worthy of dignity. Instead, as de Lubac observes, man becomes merely a cell in a mass, a faceless and expendable nothing. And this dehumanization is evident in how we describe unborn children as clumps of cells, another faceless entity that can be discarded without moral consequence, just as a CEO might now be executed in the streets of New York to social media applause. The terrible truth of our situation stands revealed. Without God and the moral framework of Christianity, man becomes nothing. And so the descent really started with the injection of atheism systematically at all levels of our society. From philosophy to education. From there, it spread to the masses through the corruption of our culture via increasingly violent and nihilistic entertainment. Consider the video game industry, which is perhaps the most powerful programmer of violence in modern consciousness. This industry generated more than $101 billion of economic impact in 2024 alone, and research indicates that 7 in 10 teenage boys who play video games are exposed to violence in at least some of their gaming experiences. And games like Call of Duty, which simulate modern warfare with startling realism, have sold over 400 million copies. And then Grand Theft Auto 5 alone generated $8 billion in revenue. This game rewards players for criminal violence, theft, and destruction. And while we definitely can't claim that video games directly cause violent behavior, they certainly have normalized violence and desensitized an entire generation to human suffering. And simultaneously, we've witnessed an explosion of horror in entertainment. Me and my family, for example, we recently went to go see the Bob Dylan movie, which, can you think of anything more just like chill, folky music? Not horror at all. But every single trailer was the most graphic horror you could ever even imagine, that my mom and my brother had to physically exit the theater until the trailers were over. And I saw this, and it was not even like giving you the gist of the film, it was like murder scenes on the screen. I was shocked. Every single movie coming out was horror. And it's very easy to understand because now the horror genre accounts for over 10% of total box office revenue as of 2023, which more than doubled from 4.87% just a decade earlier. The global horror market was valued at approximately $112 billion in 2024 and is expected to grow at a rate of 7.2% annually, reaching around $195 billion by 2023. That is billion. That is massive. And the cumulative impact of all of this, whether it be video games or violence in the news or horror films, is really startling. The average child witnesses approximately 200,000 acts of violence on screens before turning 18 years old. So is it any wonder that our society is showing profound signs of a spiritual sickness? And the statistics around all of this really paint such a devastating story. Mass shootings in the United States have tripled since 2011. Suicide rates rose 35% between 1999 and 2018, and antidepressant use has increased 400% over the past 2 decades. At the same time, so many people insist that we are progressing, that we're becoming more equitable and rational. But the evidence suggests quite the opposite, and you don't even need evidence to see that that's what's happening. We're witnessing the rapid disintegration of the social fabric that once bound us together in common humanity. It's being ripped apart, and on purpose. And the dehumanization, I think this is really important to note, is that it's not confined to one political ideology. Rather, it manifests across the political spectrum. Figures like Kristi Noem pose proudly in front of cages of prisoners stacked on each other like cattle, while the congressional candidate Valentina Gomez stages mock executions on her social media. And of course, on the left, we see the celebration of violent retribution against perceived oppressors and the dehumanization of political opponents. So what does this all mean? Because again, I said it before, but this is so not normal. I believe that we are entering a period that is comparable to the French Revolution, if not entering the French Revolution 2.0. A time of profound social upheaval driven by ideological fervor, divorced from transcendent values and from faith in God. As during the Reign of Terror, human life is increasingly valued only for its utility to meet ideological ends. As de Lubac continued in his quote, "There is nothing to prevent man's being used as material or as a tool, either for the preparation of some future society or for ensuring here and now the dominance of one privileged group." There is not even anything to prevent his being cast aside as useless. The reason that we tolerate and even celebrate this degradation of humanity is that we ourselves have been spiritually aborted. We ourselves are as dead as the 1 million babies terminated annually, or as the healthcare executive whose murder sparked cheers. All of this regression, literally back to cavemen, has come cloaked in the veil of false empowerment, of rational morality and liberation from religious constraints. So de Lubac concludes this quote with devastating insight. He continues, "For this, man has literally been dissolved, whether in the name of myth or in the name of dialectic. Losing truth, he has lost himself. In reality, there is no longer any man because there is no longer anything that is greater than man." Truth in this context and outside of this context, because it's just our reality, truth is God. There's only one way, one truth, and one life, and that is Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the only Son of God. When we reject him, when we reject Christianity, Christian values, Catholicism, just like the French Revolution, we die. So the solution to our cultural crisis is not political, it's not technological, it's not economic. It is fundamentally spiritual. So in conclusion, Jesus tells us in the parable of the prodigal son in Luke 15, "For this son of mine was dead, and he is alive again. He was lost and is found." Our culture, like the prodigal son, has wandered far, very far from home, squandering its inheritance in the pursuit of false freedoms. The path back remains completely open to us, but it's going to take a radical choice to choose God, to choose life. This is the choice that we have now, and it's more important now than ever, as I think we are truly entering the French Revolution 2.0, and we've probably been in it, but it's really starting to be manifested in these very gruesome and horrible ways with the normalization of violence and killing, not just on individual crime levels, but on a mass scale. Whether that be abortion or watching genocides in the Middle East and Gaza of women and children, we all have a choice to make here. And again, it's both an individual and a collective choice, but the choice has to happen right now, which is choosing God, choosing to see ourselves and God in other people, in our fellow man. And also lastly, I would love for you to comment down below what you think some of the solutions to this could be, because I do believe that we all carry part of the solution in each and every one of us, and that each of our voices matter. So I would love to know in the comments what you think, and I hope to see you in the next one, and I thank you so much for watching.